So what are the four difficulties, the four major problems that writers are likely to face? Hello again. Welcome to Creative Writing Corner. I'm Luke J. Morris. I know it's been a while, but I'm back. And today our writing lesson comes from a classic text on writing, Becoming a Writer by Dorothea Brande. And when I say classic, I mean this is one of those few writing books that we have that has been around for almost 100 years and is still influential to this day. This was first published in 1932, 90 years ago this year, and this was an assigned text to me my first semester of graduate school. I was required to read this, as were all members of my cohort, whether we were focusing on fiction, nonfiction, memoir, poetry, screenwriting. It didn't really matter what our focus was going to be. We all started off with a couple of books, including this one. And it's all about the writer's life and basic difficulties that writers face. She wrote that in 1932, and then the famed author and writing teacher John Gardner wrote the intro for it in 1980, not too long before he tragically died. And it is still in print and relatively popular, as I said. Before we get into that, let's talk about what Brande's process, what her focus was. She says that the root problems of the writer are personality problems. He or she cannot get started, or starts a story well, then gets lost, or loses heart, or writes very well some of the time, badly the rest of the time, or writes brilliantly, but after one superb story or novel, cannot write again, or writes brilliantly while the creative writing course lasts, but after it is over, can no longer write. The root problems, in other words, are problems of confidence, self-respect, freedom. Okay, so that's actually from John Gardner's foreword there, but it kind of sums up what Dorothea Brande is going to get into in this book. So the four difficulties that she's covering are not the standard writing class questions about story structure or characterization or coming up with your ideas that you might typically get. Nor are they the difficulties that afflict only the talentless hack writer. In fact, as Brande points out, it is the very pupils who are most gifted, most obviously gifted, who suffer from these disabilities, and the more sensitively organized they are, the higher the hazard seems to them. So what are these difficulties? I'm going to lay them out here, and you can see if any of them speak to your own writing journey. Number one, the difficulty of writing at all. For the writer facing this difficulty, it's just too freaking hard to start. The full, abundant flow that must be established if the writer is to be heard from simply will not begin, as Dorothea Brande puts it. The important thing to note here is that if you are confronting this difficulty, it is not a sign that you've chosen the wrong career or that you can't write. There are a dozen reasons or more for this problem to arise, none of which have to do with ability. A few possible roots of the trouble that Brande points out: youth and humility, or lack thereof, self-consciousness, misapprehensions about writing, embarrassment of scruples, and your own morality could be getting in the way, or your mother's morality, waiting for the divine fire of inspiration. So whether it is just your youth, you're feeling too humble, you're overly modest about yourself, you're just self-conscious, you're afraid of being embarrassed, you are unsure about your own talent or skill, you're embarrassed due to whatever your own overriding morality is, that you might violate some code of conduct, or you're just waiting, hoping for inspiration to strike. You've probably heard the formula, but I'll say it again. Writing, as in any creative act, is 5% inspiration, 95% perspiration. It's all about yourself. The difficulty of writing at all, this is one problem that must be solved before technical writing instruction can be of any help. Before understanding story structure, understanding how to create character, even understanding how to flesh out a premise, none of that's going to help you unless you first overcome this difficulty of getting writing down. Problem number two, the one-book author. This is the difficulty of the writer who has had an early success but is unable to repeat it, as Brande says. In music, we call this the one-hit wonder. In literature, you might think Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. It's important to note that this is not a quality of the author, him or herself. It is a morbid symptom of a writing disease, but it can be relieved. It stands to reason that if a writer has succeeded once, he or she can understand something of the technical end of their art. He needs to recall that understanding and return to the beginner's mindset that he had when he first took on his project. Otherwise, his impatience at being unable to repeat his success may lead to discouragement and even despair. So another good book, in addition to becoming a writer, another good book for this, if you're trying to get through this mindset, past this one-book author mindset, past this idea that you've already done your best work, read Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shunryu Suzuki. It's a great, very accessible Western or Eastern book on Western practice of Zen Buddhism for people of any religious faith. It has a lot to do with basically just living in the moment and treating everything with a beginner's mind. So I highly recommend that one. Problem number 3, the occasional writer. For Brande, these are the writers who can, at wearisomely long intervals, write with great effectiveness. This is another issue where technical writing instruction won't help. Writers in this situation are sure after every success that they're never going to have another. Nothing else they do could ever measure up to their last high point. However, those who suffer from these silences in which not one idea seems to arise may write like artists and craftsmen once they have broken the spell. So again, this is not a problem of talent. The roots of the trouble here may be several. Once again, waiting for inspiration to strike. It doesn't work that way. Inspiration is most likely to strike those who are already working. Unrealistic perfectionism, which is kind of any kind of perfectionism. A touchy vanity which will not allow anything to be undertaken which is not assured in advance of acceptance. So, being too afraid to take risks. Being scared of rejection, essentially. If this is your issue, and it definitely is one of mine, the key here is to remember Anne Lamott's shitty first drafts lesson and allow yourself to suck. It's okay. As Ernest Hemingway says, the first draft of everything is shit. It's okay. Let it go. You're gonna suck. Move on. I preach it to myself there as much as I am to anyone else. Difficulty number 4, the uneven writer. This issue is technical in nature. For Brande, this is the inability to carry a story to a successful conclusion. Writers who do this can start a story well, but usually find it spinning out of control in short order. Many of us have been there. Or if they do complete their story, they tell it so dryly and sparely that all its virtues are lost. Such a writer could probably be helped by some technical instruction in character arcs and story structure, but as Brande sees it, the problem goes deeper than that. Unevenness in writing quality is a sign that the writer lacks the self-confidence to tell his or her story well, is too inexperienced to know how his characters would act in real life, is too shy to write fully and emotionally enough to bring his story to life. So a lot of this is just about life experience. So as soon as possible, this writer must learn to trust his own feeling for the story and to relax in the telling. Even this is more a personality problem than a technical difficulty. It really is a matter of relaxing into the telling of your story, allowing yourself to suck on that first draft, knowing that you can always fix it and create it better on the next time, right? And understanding and trusting yourself to have the storytelling capability to do that. So these are difficulties that any writer may face, particularly early in her career, and until they have been overcome, she is able to get very little benefit from the technical training, which will be so valuable to her later. Which of these problems most vexes you? I know I, for one, I'm constantly confronting the difficulty of writing at all, but I do surmount it sometimes, and at this point in my career, my writing is relatively consistent, so I'm not too uneven, nor do I think I'm a one-book author, I hope. But this will make me the occasional writer, the difficulty I most often face, which is a frustrating place to be. I'm also kind of the occasional YouTuber. I'm working on that. I'm going to get more consistent at this and at my pen. And you guys will see some good stuff from me in the next year. Hold me to that. Anyway, what are the difficulties, the biggest problems that you have with writing? Are any of these 4 difficulties on that list? Do you fall in any of these categories? Please post your problems with writing in the comments below. That'll help me guide me towards what to write, what videos to make later on, what writing lessons to cover. It's been a while since I video recorded, guys. I'm sorry that this one is rough and I'm tripping over my own tongue, but thank you so much for turning in. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel to encourage me to make more of these more consistently, because I really do want to share as much of my writing knowledge with you guys as I possibly can in this short form. So hit me up, and until then, good luck and good writing. Peace.